All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm JustMoparJoe. Today we are buttoning up the front end of the 440 for the 69 Charger RT SE. And this is a dyno build, so I'm excited about it, get it done. And I'm working on the cam button. So we got some pretty nice stuff to go in this engine. This is the timing cover itself, and it is from Mancini. I'm sure a lot of you all have used this out there. What I've noticed is it's fairly shallow. And if we look kind of down the chain itself, it's a double row true roller part number on that cover if you'd like it. But what I noticed was it seemed pretty tight on there. Like the clearance between the chain and the cover itself. What I wanted to check today, step one, was the button. And I just put some tape inside of here. I was gonna slide it on our dowels, which I've already done off camera, but look at this humongous gap up here. Which, if I can hold it flat, that's about 1/8 of an inch. So here's what has to happen. The bolts themselves stick out too far. And let me show you the bolts I have. Same bolts that are in the ARP kit for Mopar V8 3-bolt cam. And I already figure on most of my rigs with a cam button, I don't use the washers. Some guys like the washers and all that. But I'm having spacing issues right now. And you can just barely see an indentation here where our bolt heads were touching, and then it kind of slid around there. So there's a couple options in this. One would be somehow grind the front of the cover, which would be ugly, and also give us a weird spacing for our button. Here's that roller button. I think this one came from 440 source. I can't totally remember, but it has to land up against that with the perfect amount of clearance there. And we're going to work on that in a minute, but currently our bolts are too long. So what I'm going to do is get those shaved some. I know that may scare some of you out there, but step one, before I shave anything, I'm going to get my favorite jar of Play-Doh out and put it on the front of this, smash our cover on, and see how thick they need to be. Will these bolts even work? There may be a better option for bolts out there, like a hex head or something like that, but I like the ARP stuff, and we have it. So we're going to see what we can do with it. There's our Play-Doh and some tape. Right there. Give her a smash. And this is very rigid on the cover, so it will not flex when I beat on the front of it. Come on down without losing our Play-Doh. All right. Let me do it a couple ways. I'm just going to cut that. And this does not have to be precise because we want to miss it. So actually being narrower than that would be great. Just get her clamped in where it won't move. So about 1,990, roughly 359. So if I show you what 1,990 looks like, will that even leave enough of the bolt itself sticking out? I may need to do a little studying on that. You'll see my top gear is currently in my little vise, softly double wrapped in a t-shirt. My button will not fit into the top gear. And there's a lot of ways you can cure this. The way I choose to cure it, I'm going to take my sandpaper roll, cartridge roll on my favorite die grinder, and I'm going to go around and around and around and around and around. It will not take very long. You'll be surprised. And I'm going to test fit, and I want it to be nice and snug in there, snug as I can make it. gear was totally washed. The Torrington bearing was put back on it. The button itself was cleaned. Everything's wonderful. This is actually I think a grade 8 bolt that I just ground the head down on. And if I had to do that, I could. It currently clears, and I can get a socket on that and torque it. But I got bolts ordered, so you'll see those before the video's over with, and I'll tell you where I got them. But right now, look at how beautiful our button sits in there. But I can tell you, it sure does stick out far. So we're going to need to have a little clearance on that deal. And I'm just wondering, can I even take that much off the backside of this without causing a large issue? Here's where we are. McMaster car came through for us here. That's heads that we're using, or the bolts that we're using. 25 eaches. I only need 3. And something else that we're using. I'll switch to the nylon button. Comp 206. I like it better. I talked with Ed about it, several other people, and they think for street application, this is the best choice. He also pointed out to me that the center of this, being at that very, very pointed tip there, spins slower than the outer diameter of a roller style button like this one. So in theory, this button should see less wear over time. I know it's a totally different properties, all that stuff. So we're going to save this for a different project. And I'm going to use the comp nylon button. My problem right now is it won't go in because my bolt heads are hanging off here. And another thing, if you see my dial indicator set up, I need to, if I can go back in, there we go. Got her on 0. I'm shooting for just under 5 thousandths. 3.5 to 5 is what a lot of people like online. So what I'm going to have to do is cut this button down. And I don't want to cut off the face of it because that's our pretty tapered end on there. So I will cut off the backside. But if I'm cutting off the backside, it will need to slide in to the gear itself. And as you can see, we're already sticking out a mile beyond what we need to. So let me pop out a couple bolts and we can kind of get a better feel for it here. This bolt head, I believe they call it 199 thousandths thickness. Right now when I slip my cover on, right there, when the cover slipped on and bolted up, I only have about 3 thousandths end play between that bolt and the cover itself. So here's some fun math for us, and it should get me in the ballpark anyway. I found my button thickness from the very, very tip to right there on that shoulder. That's 492.5. My gasket thickness, this is not compressed, is 31 thousandths. My bolt head thickness is 0.199, and we know that right now we have 4 thousandths in play, which would actually be perfect. So let's keep the 4 thousandths in mind right there. Okay, our gold camshaft in play, that same thing. We're good there. So what I'm going to do is figure out how much to cut off this. I want to trim that shoulder right there, and then I'll trim off the back because I don't want to cut the pretty face. So I know right now I have my bolt head thickness in there is 0.199. My button thickness is this. So we can cut the difference off those two. So that's 4925 minus 0.199 with a 0, 2935. So we're going to subtract now the gasket thickness because we know we won't need that. And if it ends up later, I can always shorten it. The amount that I'm going to cut off of right here, and it's going to get us in the ballpark of where we need to be. Got our button cut down. But, get her in there. You see we're still sticking out that far. So I'm going to need to trim the stuff off the back side of that button. So it'll go all the way in flush. So the shoulder right here will be up against the top cam gear. And I had to, you'll see a difference in these two bolts. I had to spin this one up and trim it so that the button would get past it. And I think what I'm going to do on my other ones, I can trim the button down just to the perfect point where my bolts will actually butt up against it. And that's going to be really nice. So I think even then I don't have to use that bolt. I just trimmed it right now because I got to have a bolt in here to be able to hold the gear to the cam to be able to check my in play from the other side. So I'm going to put the cover on with the gasket. I'll take this bolt out, obviously. But I will put the cover on with the gasket and we'll see what kind of in play we have. So then I can just adjust by taking more off the shoulder portion right there and sinking the button just a little bit further if I need to. So even right now, we got us about a 1/8 inch gap here. And that doesn't mean I need to cut an 1/8 inch off here. I know it might seem like that, but this distance is kind of exaggerating what's happening out here. If you think about a triangle's legs. So I'll need to trim that down some more. I won't take much off and we'll come back and try it again. Cover is bolted on. We are at 0 here. I like to grab, let me clean the tip of that off. Grab on a lobe like that. So I'm not touching the lobe itself. I'm just using it as a slight ledge here. Okay. There's no chance of me jumping up and over it. I'm not prying that hard by any means. 1, 2, 3.5, almost 4. I can go backwards. Back to our 0. 4 thousandths on our cam button. This is a very nice 1/4 inch thick aluminum billet cover. We can officially call that buttoned up. I didn't cut these bolt heads down as far as I did that one. Excuse me. I didn't cut these 2 bolt heads down as far as I did that one. And I actually have another bolt over here I can pop into here and size it accordingly. I got 25 in the pack, so it's all good. Our button's nice and tight. I can get our front bolted together now and keep pushing onward and upward with our little 440 build. But anyway, I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch you next time.